Hey guys, welcome to Lingua Marina, welcome to my channel. Today we're going to talk about my favorite English test out there. The test is called TOEFL. I've taken it 2 times. The first time I took it was back in 2015 when I was applying for my master's and MBA in the US, and I scored 117 out of 120. And the second time I took it was last year, and I took it from home in order to experience the whole TOEFL from home experience, and I scored 115 out of 120. And both times, so the first time I prepared for 10 days because TOEFL was my second exam I needed to take. The first one was GMAT, and I just realized GMAT is like so hard, and I didn't have a lot of time, so I mostly spent my time preparing for GMAT, and then in 10 days I had TOEFL, so I just had 10 days to prepare for the TOEFL exam. And the second time around, when I took my TOEFL test from home, because I didn't have a goal of being accepted to Harvard with that score, I didn't really prepare at all. I just read about the home test experience, and I went there, and again, I scored 115. Of course, the first preparation helped me, but anyways, the thing is with TOEFL, you don't need to spend months preparing for the exam. You need to spend, I would say, 2 weeks if you are above intermediate. But one thing I wanted to note is that TOEFL really measures your ability to speak and use English. And if you are a beginner, you won't be able to score 100 plus. That's the thing, right? It's very important that you already have the level of English that you need on your TOEFL test. So if you're intermediate, you won't be able to score 100 plus. You need to be a very strong upper intermediate / advanced person to score 100 plus. At the same time, the majority of universities would require 80 plus. So it's somewhere between intermediate / upper intermediate, and you're good there. But before we dive into the video, this is something really important. I'm gonna talk about the tips that I've used. I'm gonna recommend some resources. But if you're a beginner hoping to score 100 plus on TOEFL in 2 weeks, it is not gonna work. Nothing's gonna work. Your English needs to be on a good level, and all of the TOEFL preparation is just getting acquainted with the tasks, getting some templates. Like templates, they help me 100%. Just having a template for speaking in your head, having a template for writing, for note-taking in your head, that helps a lot because you're so stressed during the exam. We're gonna talk about that. But again, there is no magic pill here. We're just gonna go through tips that you can follow if your English is good enough. If it's not good enough yet, then, switch off this video, take general English class, and then come back once you're ready to take TOEFL. But TOEFL preparation cannot take 6 months. That's like too much. 1 month, 2 months maximum. If you require more time, that might indicate that your English level is not good enough. But again, I am not a professional teacher. This is just my opinion as a student, as a person who's taken TOEFL, and as a person who's been learning English since, oh my god, 1994, since I was 4. Okay, let's do it. Quick addition. I think you need a list of phrasal verbs. Phrasal verbs, the ones that you cannot translate, so you have to learn them. And in TOEFL, not only would you hear them in every single section, but the test makers expect you to use them in the writing section. So you really need to be good with phrasal verbs. You need to know what they are, how to use them, when to use them, and not mix them up. So we created a free PDF with phrasal verbs that are useful for TOEFL, and not just for TOEFL, because we're not learning English just to take TOEFL. We learn English to improve our lives. The PDF is down below, is completely free. Please download it. Please take notes of all the phrasal verbs that are new for you. Print it out, highlight the phrasal verbs with a highlighter, the ones that you don't know, and learn them and start using them. The PDF is free, the link is down below. Feel free to download it and start practicing right away. Tip number 1 is to just get familiar with the test. Now let's look at the table. We have a reading section that lasts from 54 to 72 minutes, and sometimes you get lucky. Sometimes you just get extra tasks in each section, and they don't count towards your final score. They're just for the test takers to test some tasks. But the thing is, you will never know. And I ended up having a longer reading section on my first test, and when I realized I'm getting a third test, I was like, no, please. Because reading, for me, is the most exhausting part. You need to be so focused on the text and see all the details in the text. And oh my god, the questions are looking for the smaller details. So I wasn't really happy when they were testing their tests on me on my actual exam. You have 30 to 40 questions, and you read text there, passages, and respond to questions. And again, it's the most tiring part. You need to be really focused. Like, my tip here would be to read everything, do all the tasks, and have at least 5 minutes to go back and just do the whole thing once again. Because it happened to me twice when I went back and I corrected some answers. And both of my reading parts in both tests were 30 out of 30. Just because I was able to correct some things last minute. Listening. 41 to 55 minutes, 28 to 39 questions. You answer questions about brief lectures or classroom discussions. With listening, it's very important to take the right notes, and we're going to talk about that a little later in this video. Then you have a 10-minute break that I would use to just go pee really quickly and then come back to the class and start listening what other people are talking about in their speaking sections, because you're all getting the same questions. And that was really helpful for me because I knew what they were talking about, and I already started preparing during my break, made some notes. I had some templates in my head. I wrote them down on my piece of paper that they gave me, so I had something to look at during the actual speaking part. Speaking, 17 minutes, 4 tasks. Talk about a familiar topic and discuss material you read and listened to. Very, very important to have your templates, because you get so overwhelmed with all the information, and having some phrases that you can actually start saying while you're still thinking about the actual topic, that really helps. We're going to talk about that. Writing, 50 minutes, 2 tasks. Read a passage, listen to a recording, type your response. That's a section where I never ended up scoring 30 out of 30. So I was able to score 30 out of 30 on my listening in the first test. In the second test, I made some mistakes, and I know where. I was just so tired after the reading section, I couldn't really focus on the listening. With the speaking section, I was almost perfect in both tests, but in the second test, again, because I wasn't preparing, I kind of forgot some of my templates. I didn't use them, so I scored less. With writing, I was never able to score 30 out of 30. My friend, who's a professional English teacher, who's a native speaker, was never able to score 30 out of 30, just because with writing, they are looking for a diversified vocabulary. They have some templates that they want you to use. They look for a lot of introductory phrases and words, and it's just so hard to accommodate all of their needs in the writing section. So I am just okay with scoring like 27, 28 on that section. I would highly recommend taking a free TOEFL prep test. There is a website called TOEFL Bank, for example. You can go there and just take a couple of tests just to get the feeling of the atmosphere during the test. Because again, it is really, in terms of pressure, the pressure is really hard. And I'm a person who uses English every single day, and the reading part was so exhausting. So I really want you to go ahead and try and take the test from home, practice test, and just get the vibe of the exam. Then you have to measure your progress. If you're just starting your preparation, what I would do, I would take a free practice test. They would measure your reading and listening because they can check that automatically. And you just write down your scores, you prepare for a week, and you take another practice test and you see how much you're progressing. And I would start with the part that's the most difficult for you. If you feel that reading has been the most difficult, then start with it, because at the beginning of the preparation process, you just have a lot of energy and optimism, and start with the hardest part. And that applies to, I guess, everything in life. Start with the hardest part because it's necessary, and at the beginning you're more positive, you have more energy. And then test yourself every other week, depending on how much time you're taking to prepare, just to see whether you're progressing or not. Because if you're not progressing, then maybe the methods that you've chosen to prepare for the test are not working. Then this applies to anyone. If your test is in 2 years or in a year or in a week, read for 30 minutes every day. And please stop reading people's tweets. Please stop reading people's Instagram posts. Start reading something that's related to TOEFL. So BBC has all of those articles. Or you can go to a website, breakingnewsenglish.com. They take news, and you're just able to read news in English. And this is, again, the type of text that TOEFL uses in the exam. The Economist, Discover, Nature, New York Times, The Atlantic, all of those kind of professional / cultural TV channels, super useful in terms of listening, vocabulary that they use. The hardest topic for me during TOEFL was biology. They had those biology texts almost everywhere. In reading, in listening, in writing, I had to talk about turtles and the Arctic and polar bears, and I am so bad at it. we had biology classes at school, but I was not really excited about them. So I'm really good at vocabulary connected with business, with YouTube, with whatever lifestyle, but I'm so bad with the vocabulary connected to biology. So before preparing for my first TOEFL test, I read a lot of texts about geography, like from National Geographic, or about biology. I watched different videos on YouTube about different mammals, etc. Just go out there, watch them, because they would use that vocabulary in the test. And also when you're reading, try to answer some questions like, what is the main idea in the text? What was the conflict? Who are the main characters? Etc. Like, try to analyze the text while you're reading it, because this is what you're gonna do on the exam. Now let's talk about the templates. First of all, templates provide you with a structure, and this is what TOEFL guys are looking for. They're looking for a structured answer. Second, they provide you with introductory phrases and all the linking words. Again, this is something they're looking for all the time. And third, they just give you time to think about the actual topic, because you know you're going to start your phrase, your answer with a sentence. I don't know. The author in the text talks about he gives 2 examples of example number 1 is the example number 2. This is the way the author describes So those templates that I've created are a part of a course that I've created together with another professional teacher. She scored 119 out of 120 on TOEFL, and we've just upgraded our course and added 15 new lectures. We've added detailed analysis of different types of tasks. For example, for the listening part, we added 3 classes where first you're going to revise the best strategies for completing the tasks, and then find out the best way of taking notes, and later on practice the skill. You will also get access to a database with all the templates that you can use. We're also included live streams that you can attend and ask questions if you have them. And if you missed the live stream, you can just watch the recording later. This is this course that prepares you for TOEFL based on my experience, based on that teacher's experience. And because you're watching this video, you're getting a special discount to attend this course. The link will be below and the promo code will be below. Please take the course, take my templates, use them for your exam, and I hope you score more than 100 on your test. And this is basically the goal of our course, is to help people who already have the level of English that they need to score 100 plus on their test. The link will be below. The next tip is to expose yourself to non-American accents. I try to speak with an American accent. I try to copy people who are around me here in California, but TOEFL uses a variety of accents. I remember there was a British accent in the test, there was New Zealand accent, there was Australian accent. So your goal is to listen to those accents and to make yourself familiar. Because I don't want you to be surprised that you don't understand what's going on during the test when you hear British accent, for example, because it's different from the American accent. And I remember when I first came to the UK, I was around intermediate. I struggled to understand British people, and I just couldn't understand what they were talking about. It took me like 2 or 3 weeks to get used to the way they talk. And once I got used to the way they talked, my friend and I sat together to watch a TV show, and the TV show was in American English, and I couldn't understand a thing. I was like, why wouldn't they translate this TV show from American English to British English? Because I struggle so much. But it's all about practice. It's all about getting used to a variety of accents. So make sure you just go on YouTube and look for different accents in the search and listen to those accents. By the way, in terms of like what kind of English you speak during the exam, well, TOEFL is an American exam, like North American, but you don't have to sound North American. You just need to be consistent. So if you decided that you're going to use British English, then please use British English. But then color is with a U, then it's not a truck, it's a lorry, it's not gas, it's petrol. So stay consistent with being British on the exam. But if you decide to be American, then stay consistent with being American. So choose one of the versions of the English and stay consistent with it during the test. But you're not required to speak as an American. You can do whatever you want, but again, stay consistent. The next tip, I don't know how you can master it in 2 weeks, if your exam is in 2 weeks, but it's really important. Taking notes. So first of all, there is this home test, TOEFL home test experience. And it's, in terms of like note taking, it was the worst for me, because when you're actually taking a test in a test center, you are using a real piece of paper with a real pencil, so you can write things down. When you're at home, you need to put your piece of paper into a folder, like a transparent file, and write with a marker on it. And because with a marker, you're font tends to be bigger, you just run out of space, and you're not really used to writing on this slippery surface with a marker. So that was like one of the disadvantages of taking the test from home. They want you to use this transparent file because they want you to erase everything after the test, and you can only have one transparent file, so you can only use 2 of the sides without like erasing stuff during the exam, without erasing stuff constantly. You know, that was really hard for me because I couldn't take all the notes I wanted to take just because I was running out of space. So if you're taking your TOEFL test from home, get yourself a really thin marker to just have more space there. And note taking is about really taking notes of every single detail. Like first time when I scored 30 out of 30 on listening, I took notes of everything, every color that they named, every student, every date. And that helped me so much because the questions that you see after the text, they're asking for such small things that the author mentioned. And I was like, how was I supposed to memorize all of that? You need to take notes during listening. And the more notes you take, the more successful you are during your listening section. So try to write everything. That was my approach. But you can only do that if you're a good note taker. If you're not a good note taker, that would only distract you. So if you feel that you can't really take notes quickly, then don't take a lot of notes. Just write down some dates. But the best strategy that worked for me is basically writing down the whole text. I use some contractions. Like I studied mathematics at the university, and for any, we had this sign and more, less, like all of the mathematical signs, I use them all the time. And if you practice note taking at home, you can come up with some signs for yourself that you can use. If you're a mathematician, then congrats. You will know a lot of signs that you can use in your note taking. If you study to be a journalist, you probably have this skill as well. Maybe watch some videos on note taking, watch some videos on how you can contract while you're writing, because again, this skill, it helps in listening, it helps in speaking, because in speaking you would also listen to someone talking about a topic and then you will need to give your opinion. In writing, they don't help too much because you're typing. In writing, something that really helps if you're taking the exam in a test center, just getting used to different keyboards, because they use really old keyboards in those test centers with like those huge I'm just used to my laptop and it's like very thin. But anyways, you need to learn how to take notes in English. And going back to the keyboard, if you could learn how to type faster, if you could learn how to touch type without looking at your keyboard, that would also be really useful. And this skill would stay with you for your whole life. Because sometimes I feel like when I'm talking about all of those exams, I just feel that, well, it just takes too much time to prepare. But then I realized like note-taking skill is a great skill. Touch typing skill is a great skill. It's gonna stay with you throughout your life. So learn that as well. And if you have plenty of time before your TOEFL test, start with those 2 skills because they would enhance your day-to-day life as well. The last but not the least, the advice is to practice speaking. And I know not a lot of you guys have a buddy who would listen to you in English, or you don't have a teacher who would listen to you in English. So what I did when I was preparing, because I didn't have a teacher, I would just talk to myself. I would just listen to, some text. I would watch a YouTube video and I would pretend that I'm talking to that person. I would pretend that I am telling about that video to my mom or to my friend in English. And just, having that structure in your head, being able to paraphrase stuff, because this is what they're also looking for on the TOEFL test. When you're speaking, they don't want you to use the exact phrases from the text. They want you to paraphrase to show that you have some other vocabulary as well. And just practicing that really, really helped. Okay guys, quick question. Please let me know down in comments below, when is your test and how much do you need to score for your goal? Is it 80 plus? Is it 90 plus? When is it? Because this would also help me to get a feel of what kind of audience is watching this channel, and I would be able to prepare more useful videos for you. Meanwhile, please enroll into the course, take the course, prepare for TOEFL, follow the tips that I've given you, and thank you so much for watching this video. Please share it with your friends who are also taking TOEFL and subscribe to this channel. And I'll see you very soon in my next videos. Bye bye.